10 o'clock. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We are excited to bring you good content from Steve Fretzin today about how to market yourself and bring your brand awareness to the next level during quarantine. What can you do during this downtime to make sure you're building that client loyalty and driving business? So he's going to share his expertise with us. I'm super excited about today. Just a couple announcements for anybody who has not been part of our webinars before. We do have a chat box on the right side of the screen, and I encourage you to use it. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Feel free to ask any questions during the presentation. We'll work them in to the presentation so that it's timely. Talk to one another as well. That's not a problem. It's meant to be interactive. It's meant to help each other collaborate with ideas so that we can all come away with a lot of good information that can help our offices survive and thrive. And one other piece of information is there is a short delay. So that means you're hearing this about 10 seconds after I say it. And if we ask a question and we encourage you to respond in the chat, there might be a little bit of a delay when you see your answers come up. But no worries, everything's okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Steve, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Dana. Appreciate being here and speaking with your group. I will get started in the presentation here. Do you see that up on the screen?
Yeah, good to go. Good.
All right, so a little joke there. Zombie apocalypse, it's happening. I think we're all getting tired of hearing about the pandemic, and now it's moved to riots and all this craziness. Hard to stay focused with your law practice. So today we're going to spend some time really focusing on getting in depth about planning and execution to grow business and sustain and grow as you're trying to stay focused on what matters, your family and building wealth and making sure that you have stability in your career. A little bit about my background, 2-minute drill. I've been working with lawyers and law firms for the past 14, 15 years. And I've written 3 books on the subject, as you can see up on the screen. A monthly columnist for the Daily Law Bulletin. If you haven't checked out my new show, my podcast, Be That Lawyer, I highly recommend that you do. I've got some of the top rainmakers, networkers, marketing experts, technology gurus that I'm interviewing to get best practices. So I think
that's great. Just a couple quick questions about Be That Lawyer podcast. I know podcasts are getting really popular. How long is it? And is it at a certain time of day each week or each month? How frequently?
So it's a 30-minute interview or show. And it comes up it's a weekly show. So every Monday morning it's posted on my website. It's also on Stitcher and it's on Apple and all the major, podcast players. So you can check that out. And it's getting a lot of momentum. I think we just hit 1,200 downloads and we're continuing to grow. So it's very exciting. And again, a great way to market and give advice and educate, in a positive way. So check that out.
Love it. Thanks.
Sure. As far as what we're going to cover today, a little bit about what's changed and how we're all adapting to that. I think it's important to either create or review your current business or marketing plan. Talk a little bit about branding during a crisis. I'm hearing a lot of mixed messages out there about posting on social media and is it worthwhile, and talking a little bit about branding, social media. And then lastly is really about how to leverage low-hanging fruit, looking at not only client loyalty, but how can we leverage the people in our lives to get some quality introductions and move the needle forward, as far as it relates to drumming up new business as easily as possible. So go through that. So as far as what's changed, I kind of joke everything has changed. It's nothing, we've experienced nothing like this in our lifetimes. I just turned 50, so 50 years, and nothing has happened in my life quite like this. So the idea that we're having to move from, very social, coffee shop, conference room driven types of environments to things like Webinar Jam and Zoom meetings and things like that. So, you have to kind of look at how you're adapting to the new normal, how you're managing things. I think most people are doing pretty well. Obviously, if you've got, 3 kids under the age of 7 hanging on your, leg as you're trying to get, to your Zoom call, it's going to be kind of tricky. So you really have to consider, what's happening around you, what's happening in your workplace, what's happening with the businesses that you normally work with and how they're dealing with this. If you're in some areas of law, it might be there's more business than ever. In other areas, it might be very tight. Courts are shut down, courts are reopening, how they're changing. So all these different things that are going on, and you need to kind of reboot as far as considering how you're going to sustain business and grow business. And we're going to obviously talk about that in some great detail.
Yeah, and I think that it's worth mentioning, this may really shift the way that work or business is transacted going forward. I mean, now that people are kind of forced into doing things differently, I think that some businesses or even professionals are finding that maybe the way they were running businesses before is unnecessary. So this could mean cost savings. It could mean more streamlining. It could mean time efficiency. And I think it might have an impact on the way we do things going forward. So in one way, it's not about just doing things differently for now. It might be something that we need to shift up or do things differently going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think you really need to take stock of again, what's going on. And if you have time more now than ever, where do you want to invest that time? Is it in learning a new skill? Is it in reaching out to people you haven't spoken to in a while? Is it continuing to, write plans and execute on plans? So think about the skills that you've mastered or what you need to learn. And again, I'm going to get into the details of writing a marketing plan. And hopefully this is going to help you get organized, because most lawyers, when asked, do you have a marketing plan? I was telling Dana, I don't know if it's 95% or higher, don't really have any kind of written plan. And unfortunately, that's like taking a trip through Africa, not even having a compass, let alone a GPS or a guide. And that's just not a great way to invest your valuable time, is winging it. That's not necessarily what you would hear as a great strategy for success, is just go out and wing it. And yet that's what most attorneys seem to be doing.
Right. We're going to go ahead and put a poll on the side. Do you have a written marketing plan, or have you made one in the past? So I have a few options up there, and we'd like to know what has been your experience.
Yeah. So
Steve, what's your experience with lawyers that you've worked with? Are marketing plans common? Do you find that people have trouble creating them or executing them?
So yeah, the reality is that, again, it's not something that was taught in law school, and most law firms, if somebody's actually in a law firm, then they might say, oh, right here, write your yearly plan. And typically that's, what are you going to do? Are you networking? What groups are you in? Do you have lists of clients? Who are your clients? It's not really getting into the weeds as it relates to what someone needs to do on a day-to-day basis. So when I work with lawyers on plans, and every client that I work with has a plan, it's reviewed, it's tracked, it's managed, okay? And the key thing here is, what's the right approach or outline, or how do you set up a plan, and then how do you make sure that you stay with it? If you don't have an accountability partner, how do you hold yourself accountable to it? I think, if you equate it to like losing weight, people are always trying to lose weight and they can't stick to it. They're out buying ice cream and pies and things like that. So
very, very good analogy is, how do you hold yourself accountable or disciplined to keep executing it?
Yeah. So number one is having a plan, physically having a written plan that you can keep in front of you. And then the second part of it is, how do you leverage your, a friend, a partner, me, Dana, whomever it is that you have in your life that's willing to kind of hold you accountable. An accountability partner would be great, just like, working out. And then again, and keeping your on your calendar so you can continually, update it and track it. But again, things that just aren't typically done that need to be done.
Yeah, sometimes it's something little, like put up a sign, You know, I remember personally before I recently bought a home, but I had been looking for a really long time, and something that was inspiring to me was I had seen kind of what I was looking for once, and I printed out the picture and I just put it on the wall. It was just a visual that I could just look at and, you know, re-energize myself. So I think it could be something small that helps people stay connected to that goal.
Yep, exactly. So let's get into the details of how to write a plan. And again, I try to keep things as simple as possible so that it acts as just an outline, you know, from macro to micro, you know, starting with big picture and then moving down into the smaller details. So think of this again as your GPS system. You know, I've got a GPS in my car. I've got the apps on my phone. I use them when I don't know where I'm going. I know where I'm going. I just don't know how to get there. And so that's what this becomes. So start off with your objective. And again, you can think of that as the address that you're going to end up going to. So if you're making $60,000 a year and you want to make 100, make that your goal. If you know that it's about originations and last year you originated 200 and this year you want to originate 300, make that your goal. It could be something as simple as I have 10 clients and I need to add on 3 more. So make that your goal. All right. That's what you want to write down. I will hit this goal by end of the year or 12 months out, however you want to track it. Once you have that big picture, one line objective written down on a piece of paper, probably at the top of a piece of paper, the second thing would be to really consider what are your options. Someone that has 200 or 300 clients probably doesn't need to go out and meet a ton of new people. Someone who doesn't have any clients is starting out a new practice or going out on his or her own, or just has been a service partner for a long time. That person may have to resort to going to networking. And again, networking is at all different levels. People that have a lot of experience in networking, like I do, you can join different groups in higher levels. It could be charities, boards, also.
It could be the friendly lawyers.
It could be the friendly lawyers, absolutely. But again, how much networking you need to do might be less if you have a large database or a large network that you've already developed. I interviewed a gentleman for my podcast and it launched Monday. His name is Walker Lawrence. He's a labor and employment attorney. The guy is one of the top networkers I know, period, hands down. So, for him, he doesn't have to join, 20 different networking groups. He probably belongs to 1 or 2 really good ones. And he spends most of his time sitting down and talking to people like me and his clients and other people to get referrals. That's going to be a much easier way to grow business than meeting strangers and having to develop your network and build it up from scratch, which again is a necessary thing people need to do at the beginning or wherever they are in their kind of their practice life. But that's what we're talking about is what do you need to do? What are you good at doing? What's gonna help you get in front of new prospective clients more easily than other things? And that's
I'm glad you said that about what are you good at doing, because I don't know that everybody realizes it. So how would you direct them to figure that out? Sometimes people, I think, might feel pressure to just attend a lot of networking events. And then when nothing really comes of it, they might get discouraged about all of that effort. Yeah. But really, what was the issue? The issue might be that you're not that good at it, but let's look at what you are good at.
So the question is, what are you good at, and what, if you're a great speaker or you believe you can become a better speaker, then and you know that the audience that you can get in front of, a variety of audience, types, that's something that you can use. And I've done that for years, and it's been very effective at helping me identify people that, have a need for my services, and also helps me build my brand at the same time. More people know me because I've spoken everywhere. I've spoken at, probably 20 different legal associations, and then writing could be another thing. And how are you getting your word out with writing? Social media could be something. LinkedIn, becoming really, really good at using LinkedIn as a way to get inside connections. So really you have to consider what are the 1, 2, or 3 main strategies that you want to do, and then that's what you want to focus on for the foreseeable future.
For sure. I think that networking is often assumed that it's just a live attendance, but really you can broaden that definition to include networking through these other mediums. And I think that's really important for people to understand and think about.
Yep. So you pick the ones that make the most sense for you, your time, what you're good at doing, or what you believe you can improve on. Again, if you need help with that, talk to people that have been down that path longer than you have, a coach, a mentor, another attorney, whatever the case might be. And then once you've identified what the lowest hanging fruit is or what your strategies are going to be, and again, there should be a couple of them, again, putting all your eggs in one basket may not be the way to go. Then the next thing that you want to do is you want to focus on what are the tactics, okay? And the tactics are the actionable things that you're going to do to accomplish the strategies. And this is so simple when you think about it from this perspective, that if you accomplish the day-to-day actions and activities that it relates to executing on your strategies, and you accomplish those strategies, you'll also accomplish your objective. So you're really working, again, from the bottom up, from the details up to the big picture, micro to macro, and that's how this gets done. So when you're writing out tactics, this is really the most important part. So your strategy might say, I want to leverage my existing network to develop, quality introductions to new business and develop new strategic partners, for example, people that are referral partners. That's great. That's a great strategy if you have that, if you have a network to draw from. Then the question is, what are the details that you need to lay out in order to accomplish the strategy? So developing 5 to 7 tactics, actionable things that you can do. What are the details and bullet points under each of those tactics? And an easy way to remember this is create it like a story. So every good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You want to make sure that your tactics are written as such. There's going to be some planning elements, there's going to be some execution elements, and there's going to be some follow-up elements. And those are the parts of the story that are going to help you figure out, how do I get going? What am I doing when I'm in the middle of it? And how do I follow through to make sure nothing falls apart here? And as you're writing these tactics, you can also ask yourself the questions who, what, when, where, how, and why. And that's going to give you some idea about getting the detail in place when you're questioning if there is more detail that's needed here, because you may not know. But you can ask those questions and then say, oh, yeah, when? Well, maybe I need to create a tactic that says when I'm going to complete creating a list of my contacts, or when I'm going to start making calls, or how many people I need to reach out to each week to hit my goal. All right. So what that plan looks like is something like this. And this is a very small miniature version of what I typically utilize with my clients, but leverage my existing database. Clearly, if that's what you're going to do, then you need to have some planning elements to this. So printing out your contacts, maybe rating them A, B, or C. Someone I met 10 years ago who does something, that's not even relevant to my career at this point might be very different than someone who has become a very close strategic partner. I would rate them very differently on a list. How I'm going to talk with that individual, how I'm going to meet with that individual, what I'm going to help that individual with, how they're going to help me is very different in an A-level player than a C-level player. So I think breaking them up into different types of groups could be really beneficial. Maybe I want to break up the groups into friends and family versus potential referral partners versus prospective clients could be one.
Yes. I'm sorry.
No,
I was just going to say, in one of your sub-points, you write, I will block out 30 minutes a week for this. I just wanted to ask, are you saying that you're recommending someone blocks out 30 minutes a week, or are you saying that someone decides how much time that they're willing to commit, and then they write that in?
Yeah, so this is only a sample. So you have to, as the creator of your own plan, figure out, A, how much time are you going to need to create this list? How much time are you going to need to create the plan? How much time are you going to spend each week dedicating to emailing out your contacts in order to get Zoom appointments with them? It's all flexible based on what you want to accomplish. And again, that's something that I work out with my clients as I work with them to try to figure out how much time they should spend. And if you're billing 60 hours a week, that's very different than billing 20 hours a week. If you're only billing 20 hours a week and you have a 40 or 50 hour week, what are you doing with the other 30 hours?
Mm-hmm.
And that means potentially you should be investing in yourself by spending that time mostly on business development and growing your practice.
And just to get some idea of framework, is there a minimum amount of time that you recommend everybody should at least be spending this much time or more? That's one question. The follow-up question to that is, what about, the return, the ROI? How much time should one allow before really seeing a difference in what their efforts, in the efforts that they have put forth?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, because again, everyone is different. I'm working with a managing partner of a large boutique IP law firm who, has a massive book, and he's only looking to create 2 clients for the whole year. So his marketing plan is going to look very different than someone who's looking to get their book to a couple $100,000 or $300,000 from 50. Mm-hmm. And the activity level that I'm going to suggest is going to be very, very different. Okay. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to have to grind it out versus somebody who just needs to set some very strategically targeted meetings over the course of the next 6 months to a year to accomplish picking up a couple new clients. The second part of your question is, once the plan is completed, I'm not getting into this at all today, and this is something I could help somebody with individually, but it isn't just about the plan. It's about actually tracking the plan for results. So once you have the plan and you have an activity level that you've calculated, and you're going to attend working events, you're going to have so many one-on-ones, to track what's actually happening in those meetings as it relates to the number of meetings and the conversions. That's where people fall short. They don't understand the importance of conversion. So if you go on 10 one-on-one networking meetings, and it used to be coffee shops, now it's Zoom meetings, but let's say you have 10 of those. And at the end of those 10, you have nothing to show for it, except that you met 10 great people and you had 10 great conversations. From a branding perspective, you may have gotten a little bump in value as it relates to, you now know 10 more people and they know you. But the reality is, if you're looking to network for actual results, you might want to get some introductions made for others, and others making introductions for you, either immediately or over the course of a period of time. And without tracking it, you may realize you're going through 3, 4, 5, 6 months with 0 results or no real benefit to you other than that branding play. So I would have people tracking on an Excel spreadsheet or through some type of CRM, which is a software like Salesforce or Interaction or Streak or Pipedrive. And that would tell us their conversions. And if their conversions aren't where they need to be, that's a skills issue. That's a lack of a particular skill, one of which, by the way, is a segue I'm going to be talking about in a few minutes. But the skill of actually converting someone from a networking meeting into how can I help them, how can they help me, and getting value out of that meeting, and also testing the waters to see if they're actually the real deal or not. I mean, if somebody talks a big game and doesn't actually follow through and just kind of blows you off, well, I think that's going to be a concern. Because if you're looking to develop referral partners that are going to be real, and they blow you off or they commit and they don't execute, well, that's someone that you may not be able to count on. And so again, part of it is qualifying people forward and qualifying people out. And again, these are things lawyers don't necessarily always think about, but I do. And I work with my clients because time is literally money for lawyers, billable hours. And if you're spinning your wheels networking for months or years, that could be a real issue with how you're investing time and getting a return on that investment. So very long answer to your short question.
No, I think it's really important to understand. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. So in this scenario, someone is saying that they're going to email 5 A's and 5 B's each week. They're going to block out time to get those emails out. And again, they've got to have it completed by a certain date or deadline. So if you're doing this yourself, then you need to have some calendar reminders. You may want to set up a reward that once you get it done, you're going to give yourself a special treat or do something nice for yourself, or have an accountability partner, whether, again, that's a mentor, coach, another attorney. I interviewed Gary Savine, a gentleman named Gary Savine, and I did a podcast similar to this. And he actually sets up a mastermind group where he has the ability to get together regularly with other attorneys to be held accountable. And I think that's a great play. So think about or consider that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Gary is actually one of our group members, and
wonderful.
we've talked about bringing that sort of benefit into our group where it's, like you said, a way for a couple people to commit to each other, 2 to 3 or 4 people to commit to each other to get these tasks done.
Yeah, again, we're all, human, and we're all dealing with, putting out fires in our lives daily. And without that accountability to yourself or to others, most things slip through the cracks. That's just the reality of the way life works, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful to know that that's reasonable and normal, but don't let that stop you. Don't let that, never give up. Don't let it discourage you.
Yeah, I mean, good or bad. I mean, in my sales career prior to starting my own business in 2004, I mean, I always had managers. I always had bosses. And these were people that were holding regular sales meetings and monthly and quarterly meetings. And those were all about accountability. And if you showed up for those meetings without a full pipeline or without your numbers hit or whatever, I mean, your job was at stake every month or quarter. So, lawyers, you don't have that same pressure in most cases, but maybe now you do as it relates to having enough business to thrive. It might be that your job's on the line, or it might be that you just need as a solo to keep pushing yourself forward. And you've got to have certain, accountabilities in place to do that. Otherwise, it's just another rough year that you've got to explain to your spouse why, you're not making the kind of money that you should be. Okay.
Right.
So that's really what I wanted to share as it relates to the plan. If anyone is interested in getting a more detailed sample of that strategic plan, you can email me at steve@fretzin.com and just say, hey, Steve, I'd like to get a better copy of that plan, and I'll send it to you. No problem at all. Okay. So we're moving into, I've got 2 more sections left in this. And one of them relates to branding and social media. And I just wanted to make a point here that we know Coca-Cola, we know Disney, we know Rolls-Royce. Everyone in law in Chicago, I think, knows Bob Clifford. Well, why do you know Bob Clifford? What has Bob Clifford done that's unique in the space? And the quickest story I have is I was in a small airplane crash in 1996, and it's a great story over a beer. But the general theme is I survived, clearly, but I was a human pretzel after it happened and actually broke both of my arms. So I could not use my arms. I was in a wheelchair. It was a mess. And I remember my dad, who's a retired attorney, pushing a phone into my face and saying, talk to Bob. He's your lawyer. And I said, Bob? And he said, yes, Steve. And I said, tell me what happened. And it was Bob Clifford. Now, why Bob Clifford for being in a plane crash? Why would my dad choose that lawyer out of all the lawyers he could have chosen? Well, Bob Clifford has done a killer job of being an expert at not only personal injury, but aviation personal injury. So that's why that went down. And so Bob ended up being my lawyer and represented me for many years to get to a conclusion on that particular incident. Okay. So think about yourself and think about what your brand is. When people say your name, what comes to mind? Or is anyone saying your name at all? Are you just another lawyer out of the 60,000 plus that exist in the Chicagoland area? That's why we need to start thinking about our brand, social media, speaking, writing. How do we get the word out about what we do? I started a podcast. Well, that's just another piece of the Fretzin puzzle that I needed to put together. I've done video, I've done writing, I've written 3 books, I've done all these things. What's next? You just can't sit back and just hope that your name gets out there. So
let's, can you help me visualize branding for lawyers? It doesn't come to mind easily. How does a lawyer create a brand? Because we're not a product, Well,
let's advance to the next slide, and I think I covered that in some detail. So the first thing that you can consider doing that's just going to either upset you or it's going to make you very happy is to Google your name. So if you Google your name and even put in Chicago attorney or labor and employment attorney, and if the only things that come up are your LinkedIn and your Facebook, and that's it, that's not great. From a branding perspective, you may want to have more information online about you. And whether that's for being found online or whether that's backing up and supporting the people that may be interested in using you, but like to know that the person they're going to choose as their lawyer has won cases, has written articles, has video, has content that says you're real. So think about it this way. You know, we all love reviews. And if you go to look at a restaurant online and you can see that there's either no reviews or bad reviews, you're probably going to pass on that restaurant. Well, believe it or not, you know, being a lawyer is becoming very similar, whether it's Avo or other, you know, online resources. You're being rated all the time. So what is your Google reputation? What's your rating? And again, what's that of your competition? If you're competing, if you're in personal injury and you're competing against Bob Clifford, you know, you better step up your game, you know? And so thinking about how you can build that up, there's a number of different ways to do that. One way to consider how you're different, how you're unique, is to actually email or call your clients and ask them, why did they choose you? Why do they believe that you're different, better, faster, stronger? And you might appreciate what you hear. You may never have considered that it might be a point of leverage that you can use to differentiate yourself from your competitors. One of my past clients is a real estate attorney, and he tried to be the most responsive he could be. So not only did he say, I give my away my cell phone number, but I also give away my home number. You can call me day or night. I want to make sure that if you call me, I'm there to help you with this closing. And I think that really said a lot about his character and about his ability to manage client expectations and just be available. And that's not for everybody, but for him, he was willing to sacrifice saying that to make sure that his clients and his reputation were built on responsiveness.
Yeah, so it sounds like he's, as part of his brand, he's talking about, you know, the on-call attorney for this sort of issue, which works for him. And it reminds me of, I was talking to the Case Tempo guys, the case management software guys, and, you know, one thing that they offer is phone support. You know, they will set up your office without any additional charge. He'll get on the phone, he'll set you up with his case management software and customize it. To me, that is a huge selling point that I don't think he realized it at the time. So it sounds like what an attorney would do is think about what is that feature that they can provide to the client that they know they can count on. You know, are they always done fast? Are they very detailed? Are they very relatable? Are they very experienced? You know, there's going to be something, right? I think that's what I'm getting from what you're saying. You have to find what that is for you.
And you have to be careful of when you're looking for a differentiator, or you're looking for a unique business proposition, that it truly is unique, and it is going to benefit your base, you know, the people that are going to be looking to work with you, your prospective clients and your clients. And so saying that you provide a high level of service, well, everybody says that, or everybody does that at this point. That's not unique. That's a baseline, right? Fair pricing, that's a baseline. A lot of people say, I offer, you know, big firm experience at moderate or lower rates because I'm not at the big firm anymore. And I think 10 years ago that was something. Today it's been so overplayed and so overused that I don't know that it just becomes kind of, you know, it's just in the ether. It's not really impacting. So consider it, have something that you think different or unique. Put it through. Here's 2 litmus tests I'll give you. Number 1 is, are you the only one saying it? So if you're the only one saying it, you might be onto something, but it has to pass the second test, which is, do people care? Because if I'm saying that I provide these awesome, be that lawyer, cool pens, you know, to my, you know, clients, well, that's wonderful. No one else is saying that because it's stupid, but no one else is saying that, and nobody cares about a pen. The fact that I work with lawyers exclusively, I know the legal industry back and forth. I've done, you know, I have methodology specific for lawyers. A lawyer could say, is that important to me? And the answer is yes. You want to work with a specialist. And then B, you know, who's saying that? Well, there might be a few other people saying it, but it's certainly not the masses. There might be a few lawyer coaches in Chicago, you know, period. So we're sharing that, you know, but even then I've got some unique, you know, propositions that I'm offering that they don't. So that's what you want to consider when trying to come up with your branding statement or your branding point. Okay.
Good to know. Yeah.
And I think the next point is just be authentic. Again, if it's something that you just feel like you're outside of yourself, or you feel like it's too much of a stretch, you know, you might want to pull it back. And again, try to be more putting yourself out there in your writing and your speaking and the way that you approach things. You don't want to be salesy, be yourself. Okay. Consider the best options or tools to get your name out. So again, that might be podcasting, that might be video. What's your audience looking for? How do they digest information? And that's something that you need to research and look into and talk to your clients. If your clients are all physically reading content, and they love reading things physically, and everything you send them is on the computer, well, maybe you're missing the boat, right? So consider the audience and then try to focus on them. Another point, always leverage low-hanging fruit before all else. I'd rather speak to my base and communicate with them and offer value for them, because they're going to be more likely to hire me and engage me than a stranger in Idaho. A lawyer in Idaho that's never heard of me, there's no chance that they're going to ever hire me as a coach just out of the blue. It just doesn't work that way. People need to read what I'm written. They need to hear what I'm saying. They need to listen to this. They need to have a coffee meeting with me sometime. After all of that's gone down, then maybe they might say, hey, Steve, I might need your help, or we should talk. So really consider, the base versus trying to reach out to strangers, again, depending on the type of business you're in.
And that's what you mean by low-hanging fruit, just to clarify. You're talking about basically warm contacts, or somebody who you can identify that already has some sort of existing connection for you.
Yeah. So your clients who already know you're terrific are always going to be a better resource for additional business and for referrals than strangers. So if you have the opportunity to leverage that, then do it before starting to, put a sandwich board and walk around LaSalle Street. That's not very different, levels of effort that have to be put out for those two different activities.
I've always thought that it's difficult to come up with something, a way to connect with or reach out to that low-hanging fruit, because some of maybe the more obvious methods are already being utilized. Let's say, for example, you send a Christmas card you send a thank you card. I think that might not be as common as it used to be, but still, sometimes it feels like those mechanisms are kind of overdone. So how does one come up with a way, where do you get more ideas from?
Well, that's a good question. You need to consider, again, and they like. So, for example, I used to send cookies out at holiday times, and I didn't get any thank yous. Like, I'm spending thousands of dollars sending out these cookies to all my clients. No one ever said thank you. And I'm like, so what am I doing here? They're enjoying these cookies. I'm sure they're delicious, but at the same time, what's the ROI and the value, and how is that keeping me sticky? So what I did was I stopped doing that, and I changed. I do that for a few bigger clients, but for most of my clients, what I send them is a very personal, handwritten note. And the thing that they know about me as a lefty is that my handwriting's atrocious. So the idea that they know that I'm sitting behind my desk trying to, capitalize every letter to write them a personal note that takes a long time for me, because they all know that my handwriting's terrible. And this is legible, that meant more to them. I got more responses and thank yous for that than I ever did with the cookies. So you really have to consider, how you're touching your clients, how you're touching your base through different mediums, and then getting feedback or even surveying them is a great way to understand, what they like, don't like, and want to change.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because it sounds like someone could just do some reflection about what is it about their personality that identifies them, Yeah. And I'll share my story. I really like to try and inject humor when I can into with my clients in the conversation. I really try to be funny and silly at times, because I think that, at least in my area of law, it's, people are going through crisis, usually death or impending death. And it's kind of a stiff area. They feel tight, and I'm trying to lighten it up. And one of the things that I just started doing was my holiday card that I like to send out, which is not necessarily a Christmas or a Hanukkah card. It might be a New Year's card. It might be a Thanksgiving card. You know, it's just kind of something around the holidays. But anyway, I started basically mocking I do like a picture of I'm always in the card myself. Yeah. And I make myself, you know, somehow in a funny situation to express a message, right? Yeah. So what I found is that my clients and my colleagues and my friends enjoy that silly humor, and now I'm trying to extend that. So that is an idea for someone who's thinking about, well, how can I be more personal? You know, you want to think about your personality and what comes naturally, and then weave that into your practice. And how can you express that? Yeah.
So again, you're unique. You're giving them something that they can enjoy. They're not getting anything like that from anyone else. And it's incredibly memorable and keeps you top of mind. So it's accomplishing, if we had a list of all the things that we want to try to accomplish in a communication, you know, you're nailing it. And that's what we want to try to consider, as opposed to just throwing money at the situation, like holiday gifts that, again, just kind of come and go and are totally unappreciated. Right. Okay. So the other last piece about this is just, again, whatever your message is and whatever it is that you come up with, try to be consistent across all mediums. So you look at my LinkedIn, you look at my website, you look at the banner behind me, you know, whatever the case might be, you know, it's all in the messaging that I'm putting out to the, you know, to the world, which is, you know, be that lawyer, confident, organized, a skilled rainmaker. And in my business cards, everything has the same tagline. So you want to continue to share that brand with whatever it might be. Moving on to social media, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but essentially, social media is something that people are concerned about. You know, there's a lot of people posting things, and it just seems like if you try to post that, you're just going to get lost in the ether with everyone else, and that is certainly true. So you have to, if you're going to post, I would say, you know, again, figure out the last piece of your branding, your messaging, and what you're good at doing prior to, you know, investing time in social media. And again, you know, try to figure out, you know, who are you really targeting and how your messaging will get in front of them. That's really important. So think about prospective clients, think about strategic partners, think about centers of influence. Who are you trying to target? And when I mentioned this, find the blue ocean, essentially what that means is, it's from a book, taken from a book from years ago, but the sea is bloodied red with competition. Go where the blue ocean is. So if you're one out of 10,000 estate planners locally and everyone seems to be the same, can you be an estate planner that is targeting a particular type of person? Maybe it's a Christian community or Jewish community. Maybe it's that you're focusing on particular types of, you know, people with certain illnesses, or you're focusing on, you know, newlyweds or people that have kids.
Sure, you know, or family lawyers, you know, dads,
family lawyers, yeah,
others versus different generations, or personal injury attorneys, certain types of injury.
Yeah. So again, consider being different and going after different targets that might, you know, there are people in my space that I've identified that are on just working with solos, but I also work with, you know, big law firm people and everything else. But someone said, hey, you know what? I just want to focus on helping solos. And so not only did they say, I'm going to focus on the legal market, but I'm going to focus on a section of the legal market. So again, the more targeted you can get, you know, Bob Clifford, personal injury. Great. How about aviation personal injury and owning that space? Doesn't mean he can't do other things, but that's what he's going to get called in for. You know, there's plane crashes, you know, I'm sure every day somewhere, and most people die, and there's going to be a lawsuit, right? Someone's getting sued, and he wants to be the guy that's getting those calls. Okay. And then just again, what's the best platform for you? You know, something like LinkedIn is great for business to business. Facebook might be more business to consumer. You know, Twitter, again, you're standing on a soapbox, just screaming your message, hoping to engage with people back and forth. You know, my wife's on Instagram all the time, and that's, you know, she's looking at clothes and puppies and other videos. May not be great for business to business. And then YouTube, again, if you can create great content, great professional video, you know, that's certainly, I know I spend a certain amount of time every day on YouTube, looking at clips of things that I don't have time to watch an hour and a half show, but I can watch a 7-minute, 10-minute clip of, Seth Meyers goofing on whatever he goofs on. I'm not going to get into it. You guys know what I'm talking about. So again, different mediums, and again, considering what platform's best for you.
Well, when you're thinking, if you could just go back to that real quick.
Sure.
Let's help people try to figure out how would they know what platform is best for them in terms of what should they be thinking about. I know you just listed a few things like LinkedIn is better for business to business, whereas Facebook business to consumer. But let's say, should they consider other things and should they do a little bit on each one, or should they just kind of pick two? What would you say people should be doing?
For most of the attorneys that I work with, it's typically them picking the one or two that they can focus on. To try to be on all of them is tough. However, I will also say that there's tools like Hootsuite and other social media schedulers where it'll put that post in all of the different Twitter, Facebook, et cetera. The problem with that is that messaging really needs to be different. How you message something on LinkedIn might be very different from message something on Twitter. So therefore, those systems, they're not a one size fits all anymore like maybe they used to be. Mm-hmm. So you have to consider that. But again, if you can focus on LinkedIn and you can get not only your brand built, but also inside connections and really trying to figure out, how to get actual business. And I teach that on a regular basis. That's going to be a great way to go. Facebook is sort of a joke because they, if you're just posting stuff there, that's only going out to 1 to 4% of your network. I mean, that's it.
Because of their algorithm, they're deciding when to repeat your post or
not only that,
to show it to.
Yeah, right? But they're right. And they know that the only way they make money now, not the only way, but one of the main ways they make money is by having you boost your posts and spend money. And if you're not doing that, they're not going to give you access to get. So if you have, 5,000 people that you're connected to on Facebook and you're only getting your post out in front of 100 of them, well, that's not really going to do much for you versus the larger number. So for example, right now what I'm doing, and I'm about to put this out, is I'm about to do some targeted advertising on Facebook because it's actually fairly inexpensive if you can do it. So it's going to be targeted on local attorneys in certain subsets of, practice areas with targeted ads that hit them only. Well, that's the best way to go on Facebook versus just posting where no one's going to see it. So you have to consider not only the type of platform, but how you're going to engage in that platform. And it certainly isn't one size fits all. And some of it you have to pay to play in order to really be effective with it.
So and again, that's a whole do you have a general recommendation out of your list that if you were to pick one that someone should probably spend more time and focus on and potentially even some sponsored ads? Is there one of these that you like?
I mean, the one that hands down, the one that's free and easiest to build your brand on, and especially for where your clients might be or where your strategic partners might be, especially if you're in a business-to-business space, that's going to be LinkedIn. So learning LinkedIn, becoming almost an expert at it, is going to be one of the greatest things you can do for not only improving your networking skills, but how you build your brand. And I'm working with attorneys on a regular basis, helping them improve how they use LinkedIn and get value from it versus posting once a week, having 200 views, and that's it. That's the end of it. They don't get anything out of it. It's just gone. They post it, it's gone, never to be seen or heard of again. For example, I not only post my podcast, but I have my guest post the podcast interview. I did this with Walker, and he emailed me saying, wow, this is really getting a lot of traction. And so where a normal post might not get much traction, the post that I had for his podcast and the one that he promoted has 12 to 20 comments. It's got shares, it's got likes, it's got a lot of social elements to it that aren't happening in a normal post of someone else's content, like an article from Forbes or from the Law 360. That type of stuff just doesn't get a lot of traction, and it's not really going to help you posting once a week or something like that. So again, whatever you choose, you want to make sure that you get in and become an expert, or become, a subpar expert, medium-sized expert at that particular social media.
Okay.
And a couple of just tips about social media. Again, understanding what your audience is looking for, what kind of content they're looking for. Educate yourself or your assistant to make sure that you're posting properly. That includes keep putting other people's names in the post, hashtags, links, imagery, again, making it social, interacting with people, asking questions, trying to get people to engage, making sure that you're being authentic, consistent messaging. So again, once a week, once a month, probably not going to cut it. I went from doing about 3 posts a week to doing 5, mainly because people are in front of LinkedIn now more than ever. The interesting side of it is the podcasting has gone down because most people listen to podcasts in their car. Well, no one's in their car. So kind of a bad time to start a podcast. However, I'm producing content. That content doesn't go away. It sits in, on Stitcher and on Spotify and on my website, so it's something that people can go back and use when they do get back in their cars. And then, as I mentioned, really making social media social, as opposed to just posting and then hoping it does something it's not going to. You gotta figure out how to make it social, and I've covered that a little bit as far as some of the best practices. Okay, moving on from there, I really want to talk about that low-hanging fruit and how do we actually get value from the networks that we have currently, and that's really an important thing. Most lawyers are sort of in the dark as it relates to how do I leverage my friends, family, clients to get referrals. And there's a fear factor to this that exists because who am I to ask something of them? Or my clients already give me business. I don't feel comfortable approaching them. And it's a mindset, but it's also a bit of a fear because there's no process and there's no language that helps to make it comfortable. And so what I wanted to do with the remainder of our time, and I think we've got a few minutes left, is really just to share some scripting and some ideas about how I help my clients be effective with getting actual business out of a friend, out of a lawyer friend of theirs, out of a client. So it starts off with setting the tone. So let's say, for example, in script 1 here, it's a friend where you've never discussed business before. You're in the friend zone, and a lot of people are in that zone. It's a neighbor. It's a friend. Again, that friend might be a lawyer as a general counsel at a company, never discussed business before. So here's just one example, and these scripts may not be for you. It might be something that you say, you know what, I can tweak that script and make it better and more appropriate for me. But I was thinking we haven't had the opportunity to discuss our businesses with one another. It might be valuable to learn more about what each other does as new issues come across our desks. Would you be open to a Zoom meeting where we can learn more about one another from a business perspective? And again, most people are going to say yes. You'd be amazed at how many people are totally open to that. Same thing with a longtime family member. Maybe it's someone you see, every, a couple times a year, but they own a, $50 million manufacturing business, and you could be their labor and employment attorney. You could be their IP attorney. Who knows? I'd love the opportunity to chat with you in the next week or two. We usually see each other, but that's not happening. I'd love to learn more about your business, and maybe I could be a resource for you, and you might be open to talking about, things that you do. Okay.
I think it's worth mentioning that a lot of people might be feeling this way, but it's the person who just takes the step to open the conversation that makes the difference. So if someone is feeling uncomfortable about reaching out to someone, it might be helpful to realize that a lot of people feel the same way. Everybody, I think, can relate to the feeling where they say, oh, I'm glad she asked that. I was thinking the same thing. I just didn't want to raise my hand.
The other important thing to consider is that you're very good at what you do. If you're not very good at what you do, then I wouldn't do any of this stuff. I'd focus on becoming a better lawyer. But if you're good at what you do, you know that your clients are happy, you know that you add value, you have to really think of yourself that if my uncle, if my friend, if somebody referred me business, it's probably better coming to me than someone else because I'm going to take care of them. I'm going to give them personal attention. I'm going to get a good, the best result possible. And that's how you want to consider this before you engage in this kind of this kind of offer. A couple others, a lawyer or past referral source, same thing. This is like a quid pro quo. Let's get together on a Zoom and let's figure out how we can help each other. There may be some benefit in doing that, and that's networking 101, but it's something that you need to approach and get them to agree. So you'll notice that the language is all permission-based. I'm not pushing anything on anyone. I'm giving them an out. If they say, Steve, I don't want to network with you, I hate you, or I'm not comfortable with that, or you suck, whatever, now you know. All right, so I'm not going to ask you that again, or maybe I got to repair that relationship. But if you're dealing with, A contacts and B contacts who know you're good, that like you personally, this is going to go over very well. All right. The last one is a happy client who is well connected and may be able to refer you some other contacts that client knows. So you've got a meeting scheduled on a Zoom to talk about business. And I thought it might be helpful to think of some business connections that might be good for one another. So you're not saying I want to talk about how you can give me business. You're saying maybe there's an opportunity to help each other. And then the bottom one is if you're uncomfortable with the first one, here's a backup plan. This is basically saying, like, I'm uncomfortable having this conversation, but I'm having it anyway. There's something I'd like to ask of you, and it goes outside my comfort zone a little, but it's important to me. I know how well connected you are, and I was hoping you'd be open to discussing, et cetera, et cetera. So here you're actually admitting that you're uncomfortable, which is true. And then what'll happen in most cases with someone that likes you is they're going to come to your rescue. It's like if my wife asks me, she says, "Oh, I see you're not feeling well. You've got a headache. Can I get you some aspirin?" Well, why is she coming to my rescue? Because she cares about me. Okay. So that's what's going to happen with a client or someone that if you're uncomfortable, just admit it and watch what happens. They'll come to your rescue and they'll help engage you in accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish, which is having a discussion about people they know that own businesses or general counsels or people that might make sense to work with you. So it's seemingly simple, but it's not done by most attorneys. They're just so uncomfortable with this whole idea that they'd rather just wait for the phone to ring than to actually be proactive with it. And it's a big misstep because the phones just aren't ringing like they used to. I mean, my father's whole career was built on the phone ringing, and that's just not happening. I mean, how often does your phone ring with someone saying, "I've got some business for you," and it actually works out? Once a month, twice a month, once a week, not often. So we have to be proactive with this stuff. Otherwise, it may be slipping through the cracks and we don't realize it. And sort of the last thing I'm gonna kind of wrap up on this is that if you actually take the time to get a quality interview, for someone to say, "Yes, I'm open to that conversation," well, there's other steps that I teach that help to make sure that this process goes through smoothly. And if you miss any of these, it's very possible that where you started very, very strong, it may die on the vine. Okay. So number one is offer help. If you can offer your client help, offer them contacts, offer them value, it may just happen naturally that they want to offer you the same thing. But if you don't have the ability to coach them through that process, that's where things fall south, because a client might say, "Oh, and I'll keep my eyes open for you too if anything comes up." And you go, "Oh, that's great." And you're like, "Oh, that's wonderful." It's not. I mean, it's okay, but realistically, are they going to sit and think every day about how to find somebody for you? The answer is hell no. So you need to then show gratitude and then try to walk them through a bit of a process. So discuss the kinds of introductions that make sense for you. Actually get them to come up with some names on the spot if that's something that you can do, to help them help you. Coach them to make a quality introduction. That's what QI stands for. If they give you a name and number and say, "Call this person," appreciate it, but say, "I appreciate that. What would make more sense is if you could actually speak to them on my behalf, share your experiences working with me and why you think this is a good introduction. And if they say, 'Yes, I agree, let me talk to that person, me or you or whatever,' then you can do an email introduction. That way I can take control of the situation, take control of this opportunity." Okay. And then establish a time frame of when they're going to make that ask. And then is there a follow-up step that you can establish? So these are all things that if you miss any of them, which most attorneys don't even know that these steps exist, but if you hit all of them, the chances that this is going to come through are great. It's like counting cards in Vegas versus walking in and just, putting money in a slot machine or just walking up and making bad decisions at a blackjack table. You're not going to do very well. So we're just trying to hedge our bets by following a proven process, which is, again, what I teach lawyers. I spend all my time teaching them proven methodologies and language to get them over the finish line more efficiently than just figuring it out on their own or missing a bunch of things and wondering why that client never ended up following through. Well, the client moved on to the next thing, the next fire the client had to put out. So
right.
these are the things that really need to happen that just aren't happening on any kind of real level.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, the legal industry just is a lot more similar to other goods and service industries than it used to be. I think the legal industry has been transitioning for decades, but now we're more competitive than ever. So being able to kind of step up the game in the ways that you're talking about is going to be critical for people if they're looking to really build that client loyalty and stand out.
And you have to earn that client loyalty. It used to be a myth, meaning, or it's a myth now, that client loyalty is based on doing good work at a fair price. That's all it was. I did good work at a fair price.
Right, happy. Once upon a time.
Once upon a time. And here's a list of things that you need to do in order to stay top of mind, to add value for your network, for your clients. You have to be more than just a lawyer. You have to be a counselor. You have to be a friend. You have to be an advocate, an advisor. And you have to provide value for them beyond just the work. And that's a skill. That's a learned skill. That's something you can put in your marketing plan. That's something that you need to execute on and try to automate some of it. But others, you just have to consider how you're going to make outbound reaches so that when you eventually do ask for their help or a favor, they can't help you fast enough. And if that's not what you're doing, then again, these are missteps that need to be solved before you start asking for your clients to refer you other friends of theirs that could be your whole year. And you can't do that until they see you on a regular basis. You're providing great advice. You're offering them connections. You're sending them articles that are relevant to them. Those kinds of things are going to make all the difference in the world. And in wrapping up, you know, these are some things that I went through today: planning, social media, getting value out of your clients and introductions, you know, inbound introductions from low-hanging fruit. These are just some of the things that I work on with my clients, and it's important to know that there's a lot more. If you're interested in, and just as not a pitch, but really just an offer, that I'm going to be emailing you a survey to give feedback on the presentation. What did we miss? What else would you like to hear? What did you like about today? And also, do you have interest in talking with me? Because some of the things you're hearing, you're like, I could do that much better if I had someone in my corner. You can say yes, you can say no. But in exchange for filling out the survey, I will send you all 3 of my books in an ebook fashion. So you will have more content on networking, on business development, on what I call sales-free selling, that you'll be able to utilize, whether just to continue to expand your knowledge and learning base as it relates to growing your practice and, you know, staying sustainable and effective.
Well, Steve, thank you so much. I want to take a minute. We are at time, and I really appreciate your expertise and sharing it with us this morning. I think many of the things you have said can help a vast majority of people get on the right track and achieve their goals. So just a personal thank you for joining us and supporting our group.
My pleasure.
And a quick thank you for all the viewers that joined us this morning. I know schedules are busy, but hopefully you've gotten some valuable content that can help take your practice to the next level. Stay tuned. I'm always trying to bring more member benefits and features that can help you survive and thrive. So we're going to close it out. I'll be contacting you with attendance confirmation so that you can get your CLE certificate, and Steve will be contacting you with a survey so that you can take advantage of that offer if you're interested.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dane. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Be safe.
Bye.